You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, episode 29. This week on the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast, we are joined by Tony Vandemore of Habitat Flats, and we continue our duck profile segment, and we feature the Harlequin. All right, welcome to this, the 29th episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast. We are your on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. I am Josh Palm. Joining me today, as he always does, is Dan Hruska. Dan, how are you, bud?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. If you would like to reach out to us here on the show, you can find us at hpoutdoors.com. You can shoot us an email at info@hpoutdoors.com. You can also find us on iTunes, where you'll be able to listen to all the past episodes that we've done. And we're on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're on Facebook, you can check us out at the HP Outdoors Waterfowl Podcast listeners group, where some of the folks that listen to the show are in there, and we chat and have conversation and things like that. So if you're interested, come on over and join us there. And then you can always reach us on the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast hotline at 724-609-FOWL. That is 724-609-3695. The other thing is you can also sign up for our newsletter and our mail list, where occasionally we will send out, various things about the show to your email. So if you're interested in that, you can find it at hpoutdoors.com and sign up there. So Dan, what's new with you since we spoke last week?
Oh, the snow's melting, and I think you're reaching for something a little more, but I'm not sure.
No, I'm not actually. I was just giving you the opportunity to talk about, weather and other randomness that you bring up every week. I'm actually more focused on the fact that turkey season is rapidly approaching here in my neck of the woods. April 11th, I believe, is when that starts up. So I might even actually head out tomorrow morning and see what I can hear and see if I might be able to locate some. But as we've talked about, I'm going to be hampered a little bit this turkey season because I'm getting ready to build a deck on my house. So got to have it done by my son's birthday in the end of May. So going to cut into turkey season a little bit this year, unfortunately, but, got to knock that out, get that honey-do list knocked down before duck season comes back in.
Man, the honey-do list start over again already.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, since you were bringing it up, we broke down today and we bought a minivan.
I'm not sure why you're being so melancholy. I was just getting texts all afternoon just bragging about just drop top DVD players and leather and stow and go seating and just every feature that a minivan has to offer. You're in the.
I'm just trying to justify.
Yeah,
just trying to justify the purchase.
I'm sure you're in the dealership doing air kicks. I can just see it now. I have no doubt you're so fired up about this. So it's all good, man.
Well, I tell you what, it drives very, very nice, and I don't know. Hopefully, the wife can keep it under control, because half the way home she was just like, I need to keep my eye on it because it's just getting away from me. It just feels so nice and blah, blah, blah. So
is it really possible for a minivan to get away from you, quote unquote?
Well, it is so smooth that you don't realize how fast you're going. So apparently, yes.
Wow. I just don't. I'm just not there. We're living different lives, man. That's just the way it is. But so I'm glad that you got that, behind you at least, and we can all move forward with our lives. And an interesting thing that I've been seeing lately is we talk about weather a lot, but we've had a warm up here pretty quick. We went from having, 8 or 9 inches of snow to 60 degrees today. So kind of in, the week's time, essentially. And, I'm already seeing local geese pairing up, kind of getting into their breeding pairs here locally. So, that just, tells me spring is here, baby. We're ready to go.
Yeah, just about every day last week, and it was starting to warm up, and every day there's geese flying over me, but a lot of pairs, landing in fields going to feed and, just flying randomly throughout the day. So it's going to be that time.
Yeah, we've got tons and tons of geese flying through my area right now. With these last couple of days as a warm up. So makes me miss the fall, but, as I said, I'm fired up for turkey season. I'm fired up for some warmer weather for a little while, do some fishing, that kind of stuff. And, the good thing about it is, man, in Virginia, I can hunt deer with a bow, doe only, through literally the end of April. The season runs all the way to then. So, I mean, we can hunt turkeys in May. So it's really June, July, and August. I got to find something to do. And then I'm back, hunting birds. So the good thing about living here is seasons are long and there's not a whole lot of time that I got to fill with something other than hunting. So pretty fortunate in that regard.
Gotta get that fishing in.
Yeah, do a little fly fishing this summer, get that going. But anyway, let's get on to bigger and better business this week. We are joined by Tony Vandemore of Habitat Flats. Obviously a name that's really well known, with waterfowl hunting and, some of his videos and things like that have been circulating on the web are just, some really intense and just incredible footage of, especially the stuff that he puts out there, snow geese,
Yeah, when we started the podcast, and this is episode 29, I think the first person I threw out was Tony Vandemore to have him on here. So he's kind of been my number one for a while, and I don't know why we didn't reach out to him sooner, but, for a guy of his caliber, and he just worked around our schedule more than his own, I think, especially when he's guiding, and, he has a new baby at home too, so he has a lot going on, and it was nice to see someone of his stature just be so humble and come on and just working with us and loving talking about the sport. And I think we need more guys like him out there for sure.
Yeah, I've mentioned this on the show before, but without saying names and that kind of stuff, there have been some people, companies, etc., that we've reached out to that just won't give us the time of day, won't return messages, anything like that, for whatever reason. And, to have a guy like Tony, 150 some thousand likes on, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, literally returning emails within the same day. And, just, it's really refreshing just to see someone who, you can tell that when you hear them on an interview or you read them in the paper and they just sound very genuine and very, just committed to the sport. And it's something that they truly love to do. And it's not just a business and, that kind of thing. He's truly that type of guy. And, it was great having him on the show. And I think he just has such a unique perspective on waterfowl hunting, given the platform that he has there with Habitat Flats and just the experiences he gets to have, in the field. So, really excited to have him on this week and think that, everyone's going to kind of enjoy listening to that. But before we get into having Tony on the show, we need to, continue on with our duck profile segment. And, we're actually getting down to the kind of the end of it here. We're going to be transitioning into geese here in the near future. But, before we get there, we've got the Harlequin, which we'll focus on this week. And, this is one of those birds that, can't even harvest them in the area where we live, but just kind of a cool duck and one that I think is probably a bucket list for a lot of guys, especially from our neck of the woods. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more this week about the Harlequin.
All right, the Harlequin, the male is about 17 inches, the female's almost 16, and they're about 1 to 4 to 1 to 2 pounds respectively. The male Harlequin is very distinct, and you're not going to confuse it with any other waterfowl species. The basic body color is a deep slate blue, and it is just livened up by white stripes, crescents, and spots on the head, neck, and scapulars, and the side and flanks are chestnut colored, and it just the contrast is beautiful in it. The bill is blue-gray, and the legs and feet are gray. The female Harlequin resembles more of a female bufflehead, except for 3 white spots on the head. The hen's basic color is a blackish brown. There also is an oblong white spot behind the eye, and that's it's a little different from the buffleheads. The female Harlequins are also duskier and larger, and in flight show no white patches on their wings, as buffleheads do. And the Harlequin retain the same appearance throughout the year. And breeding, the range is divided into 2 separate and distinct regions, the Atlantic coast and the Pacific coast. And like you were saying, we can't hunt them here, but most of the time they don't make it down this far. On the Atlantic, population breeds from the Baffin Islands, Greenland, and Iceland through central and eastern Quebec, eastern Labrador, and northern Newfoundland. And the Pacific population breeds from western Alaska, northern Yukon, northern Columbia, southern Alberta, south to Oregon, Idaho, Wyoming, and east of the Continental Divide in Montana. And they begin to mate in their second year of life. And females nest on grounds, on small cliffs and tree cavities, on stumps along rocky shores close to rapids of mountain streams. And they lay an average of 5 to 8 eggs.
Yeah, you mentioned in our neck of the woods, they really don't get down this far most of the time, but they migrate actually laterally from interior regions. The Pacific Harlequin spend most of the winter in the coastal areas from the Aleutian and Pribilof Islands, I guess, south to down to central California. The Atlantic population winters in the coastal areas from Greenland and Iceland, south through Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, and on the rare occasion might get down as far as Maryland. Population-wise, the Harlequin duck is abundant during the breeding seasons in a few regions within its range, but they're really only areas that are remote and virtually inaccessible to most people. Recent populations estimate that the Pacific population is about 1 million birds, and the Atlantic population is roughly in the 11,000 breeding pairs or so. For feeding habits, the Harlequin dive to feed on crustaceans, mollusks, insects, small fish, things like that. But Dan, you actually had a interesting point that you found about the Harlequin's feeding habits.
Yeah, I was looking it up, and it says that the Harlequin is the only duck in North America and only one of 4 in the world that specializes in feeding in fast water, and particularly in turbulent, rock-studded rivers that drain lakes and are rich in invertebrate life. And when they search for the food, it actually walks along the bottom of fast-flowing streams, using its bill to search among the rocks, which was pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, that's unique and makes sense as to why when they breed and stuff, they breed close to the shores of rapids in the mountain areas, because that's how they feed. So that's this week's profile, the Harlequin. So Dan, it's not too much further down the road that we're going to get into to the geese portion of our profile segment here. And then after that, man, we're going to have to figure out a whole new segment, and we'll have burned through. I'd have to look back and see when we started this, but we've been doing the profile segment for quite a while, and we've covered a pretty good array of ducks. So we'll have to find something else to talk about, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're running out of the duck segment and pretty much can't talk about the van search anymore. And I don't know, I'm still on my diet, so if we want to talk about that, we could do that, but I mean, that gets old. So yeah, we got some brainstorm to do. Speaking of that, when we're in the switch direction, here we go, the podcast listeners group, and I just kept asking the guys about the alligators in waters in Louisiana or Florida and stuff. If anyone out there has a story where you ran into an alligator or a bear or anything like that, I think it would be a really cool segment to get some different stories just talking about what duck and goose hunters run into while they're afield. You know, we go out hunting, but sometimes you run into things that can hunt you. And, you know, I know we have a lot of guys from Montana and different areas listening. So, I mean, there's some predators out there that I wouldn't want to run into setting up a decoy spread. So if you have anything, you know, you gave out the number and everything at the beginning of the show. So hit us up and maybe we'll put your story on the air.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be cool to hear from some guys around the country that, you know, have had that experience. So if it's happened to you and you feel like sharing it, please feel free to hit us up on the hotline at 724-609-3695. And you just might hear us play your story on the air. All right, Dan, let's go ahead and move on. And, you know, this interview that we're getting ready to get into is, like we've said already, one of the most exciting that we've had on the show, one that we've been looking forward to getting into for a long time. And, you know, we hope that you guys enjoyed as much as we do. We tried to take a little bit of a different approach with Tony, being that pretty much everything, you know, everything you read and you see with him, he gets a lot of questions about snow geese and things like that. We do talk about that a little bit, but we tried to go a little bit different just to have a little more fun with it and do some different stuff. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to hearing, you know, what guys think of this interview. What do you say, Dan?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Let's go ahead and get into it. And our interview with Tony Vandemore of Habitat Flats. All right. Once in a while, you get to the opportunity to speak with, you know, someone that's really synonymous with waterfowl hunting and really well known throughout the industry. And today, Dan and I are fortunate enough to be joined by just one of those figures. It's Tony Vandemore of Habitat Flats. Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you giving us a lot of time, and you know, I know you're busy this time of year. So before we get into waterfowl hunting, though, because I know that's what you're here to talk about, and that's what we want to talk about with you. But before we get into that, a lot of the listeners of this show know that Dan and I are both we're both baseball guys. Both played in college. I had a chance to play briefly in the Nats organization after I got out of school. So, you know, after we got done setting the interview up with you and did a little research, you know, saw that you're a ball player and went back to your senior year there at Truman State University. Batted .373 with 14 jacks. It's a pretty impressive season.
Man, that's a long time ago.
Hey, 14 bolts is nothing to shake a stick at, but you know, I saw some stuff that you did, and you said you were a better duck hunter than you were at than hitting fastballs. So I think you made the right choice, though. I think you've done pretty well for yourself, and I'm glad that we get a chance to talk with you here about it today. But you know, with guys like us and guys that listen to this show, you know, we see organizations like Habitat Flats and the stuff that you've got going out there. And, you know, it's just, you know, it's something that we look at as, man, it's just like living a dream. You know, you get to hunt all the time and spend, you know, as much time as you can in the field and all of that kind of stuff. But, you know, we know that there's a lot of behind the scenes work and time and effort that goes into making it all work. But, you know, does running an outfit like Habitat Flats ever truly feel like work, or is it really just, you know, as glamorous as we all make it, you know, want to believe it is in our head, that you're truly living the dream?
There's a few days that might feel like work when the weather's not the best or something like that, but really for the most part, I'm extremely fortunate that every day when I get up, I don't feel like I'm going to work.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine having to go through that pain every morning, waking up and doing what you love. No, it's a great thing you got going on. So you're a co-owner with a few other guys of Habitat Flats. Talk a little bit. When did you know that, you know, Habitat Flats, you had something really, really special there and different from other outfitters? I mean, you guys just have some prime territory, and, you know, is that something going in when you're buying the property that you knew it might be a little different, or after you set it up and put some work into it that it really came to light?
Well, I mean, I think we kind of knew it was going to be something pretty special from the get-go, where we probably wouldn't have done it. You know, it just kind of all came about myself and my three partners, Aaron, Ira, McCully, and Van Doherty, were all good friends, and we had our own pieces of property kind of in the area, and we started hunting together and became really good friends, and, just kind of took off from there. We wanted to develop more habitat, and, stuff's not getting any cheaper, so the best way that we could find to help subsidize the management costs were to run some hunts, and that's really kind of how it took off.
Man, that's incredible. And so could you tell me how many acres are you guys up to now?
Oh man, I think we slug around 2,800 acres, or fairly close to that. 56 or 57 different blinds.
That's awesome.
It's very cool. We never wanted to sacrifice quality of hunting. So, when we first built the place, the lodge sleeps 32. And when we first built it, that was solely for snow goose hunting, to have that many people in there. And when we first started duck hunting, we just didn't have all the property that we do now, so we ran a lot less people. We were hunting 8 guys or so, and then as we kept acquiring more ground, and we were able to add more people.
So when you're talking about just such a high quality outfitter as Habitat Flats, and I know you put, I can't imagine how many hours you put into that, but how much pressure do you feel running clients through your operation? Just the pressure of every day, if people out there watching your videos and seeing your photography, what kind of pressure does that put on you to just give them a world-class experience at your place?
Well, there's definitely a lot of pressure. I don't think there's probably a guide service in the country that's solely in it just to make money. It's a passion of mine and my partners as well. Hunting is it's all I've ever known. It's what we've done, my family and my grandfather and dad and uncle. That's just kind of how I was brought up. So, there's definitely more pressure involved when you're taking people with you. But that being said, it really would be the same pressure anyway. It's something I love to do, so I'm not going to go out there and give it anything less than my best effort, whether I have people with me or not.
Tony, you're an accomplished guide. You're an accomplished hunter. You talk about, I think I saw it on your website or on the Habitat Flat site. You've got a quote on there that says, for some, waterfowl season is defined by dates on a calendar. And you talk about how it's more than that for you, and it's a lifestyle. And I think that, that probably resonates with a lot of guys. And, we don't all have, the opportunities to hunt and spend as much time in the field as you do. But, there's a lot of guys that just get tore up with waterfowl hunting, and it becomes, a part of their life. And there's a lot of guys that listen to this show that are kind of just getting started and sort of get dipping their toe in the waterfowl world and learning as they go and that kind of thing. And as someone that's kind of reached a level that you have with waterfowl hunting, what kind of advice would you give to a guy that's sort of looking at it right now and sort of just getting started and, trying to just figure out how to, put a couple ducks on the strap on a Saturday morning?
Well, probably the thing that can help anybody is scouting. That's a big part of the game. You want to know where your birds are coming from, what they're doing, how they're approaching a field or a certain water hole. Are they hitting it before they feed? Are they coming to loaf in there? You just really, I love to watch waterfowl, whether we're hunting or not. Go up and watch and listen to them and just observe. And you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot by doing that. And I think that'll really help success in the field.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that. We talk about scouting a bunch, and sometimes Dan and I talk off. When we're not recording, we're like, "Man, are we pounding the scouting thing too much?" We talk about this all the time, but it's glad to hear that you feel the same way and put as much value and as importance on it as we do. And To something that you said earlier, you talked about when Habitat Flats was getting started, you wanted to conserve more habitat. And, we've talked about it on our show a bunch. It's kind of one of the holy grails of duck hunting is to be able to walk to the back 40 and be able to have a successful hunt. So we get a lot of questions from guys, wanting to attract and hold ducks on their property. Can you give any kind of suggestions or some recommendations maybe that the average guy can do, that they might be able to implement on their property to help it hold ducks a little bit better, or maybe attract ducks if they've had trouble, getting ducks on the property in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I think, habitat management is probably, it's my passion. It's what I love to do in the off season. That is what I do all off season. But I think as a whole, it's kind of scary for people when they think about it. They're like, whoa, habitat management. Okay, that's going to require a lot of money and a lot of time. And really, that's not the case. Waterfowl has survived on moist soil foods for thousands and thousands of years. And, to get good moist soil habitat is as easy as just taking your water off, for a particular farm or a wetland at the right time of the year. You do a slow drawdown, in our area of the country, in mid-June, you're going to end up with good natural millet, smartweed, panicum, foxtail. I mean, all the good natural foods that are there is as easy and as cheap as just pulling some boards and taking your water off at the right time.
And that, just all that conservation that you do and, feeding God's animals, it brings me to bring up your video that you made. So God Made a Hunter, which was just, resonated with a ton of people all over the country. And, on Facebook there for a while, I think that's the only thing that was on my timeline. It just, people were sharing it left and right. So, but speaking of that, your Facebook page has, 150 some thousand likes on it. You have tons of Twitter followers, YouTube, you're all over social media. How do you feel that social media has, impacted the waterfowl community? And, with all the anti-hunting and whatnot, if you have any opinion on some of the positives and some of the negatives, maybe the, positives that it brings more people to Habitat Flats, or negatives, people, calling you and telling you how much they don't like hunting, or, talk to that a little bit if you could.
There's a lot of positives to social media. I mean, we get to share what we do every day with a lot of people, and for free. I've really enjoyed taking photos, and I like being able to share that. I mean, I feel very lucky that the things I get to see on a daily basis. Very fortunate, because I know that not a lot of other people do, and like to be able to share that. So it's nice to be able to share that and see what other people are doing in different parts of the country. And like you said, with anti-hunters, I mean, we're lucky that we're still able to hunt and all that stuff. But if we can't stick together as hunters, we run the risk of that being taken away from us. So maybe the one negative I see to social media would be, I mean, it's almost like, it's jealousy. I mean, people see other people doing good things, killing a lot of birds or whatever, and they had a rough day. They want that. So I'm not saying me in particular, but just as a waterfowl community, I think that we're kind of divided in a lot of ways. And that's the one negative I see to social media, is you have a platform where there's a lot of people on there, and people giving other people trouble because they're not doing this right, or they're not good at this, or whatever. I think as a whole, we can all stand to be a little bit closer, a little bit tighter knit community, just because there's so many people that would like to shut hunting down.
Yeah, I don't think we could agree more with you on that. And we actually spoke to it. There's just so many forums that, a new guy might be on and will ask a question and gets totally ripped up for it. And it's like, there's so many hunters leaving a sport and not as many coming into it. It's just not the attitude that people should have towards new guys. And, if, like you said, if we could all help each other, it'd be much, much greater place.
It's like a bunch of little clicks, like, okay, you use this decoy, so I can't talk to you, or you blow this kind of duck call, then, well, I can't talk to you. And that's all ridiculous. Who cares what you're using as long as you're out there having fun and being safe, enjoying the outdoors.
Yeah. We speak to that all the time. So let me move on here. And, some of your video, well, pretty much all of it, some of the best videos of snow vortexes, your F5s. And I know you get asked these questions a lot, but let's talk a little bit about the scouting and the prep work that it takes to be successful on snow geese. I've heard you call them the tarpon of the waterfowl world, and we don't get many snows where we're at, so we're not too familiar with it. But if you could speak to the gear and maybe even the setup time a little bit, and just the overall time that goes into having successful hunts and creating the videos that you do.
Yeah, snow goose, they're the hardest of all waterfowl to decoy consistently on a day-to-day basis. They fly around in huge bunches. They're old. They're smart. They're very weather dependent, at least for me anyway. I love sunshine and wind. Other parts of the country are different. They want it nasty and whatnot. But for me, your big days, your really good days when it all comes together are a combination of having a great location. And, like we touched on earlier, there's no exception for scouting. It's what you have to do, especially in the snow goose game, because they're constantly moving to different areas, going to different fields. I've always said, with snow goose, you can't really get in front of them. You just hope to stay one step behind them. Right. But the scouting part of it, that's something I love to do. It's almost like a hunt in itself. You get up and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to this area today. And it is a hunt. You're out there trying to find the needle in the haystack. And where it all comes together and you find it, and you're talking to the landowners, you get on there, and then that night you're out there putting out decoys, and your mind's already running like, man, all right, what's the wind gonna be doing? Are they gonna come? Are they not gonna come? Or how many are gonna be here? It's just the anticipation that leads up to the hunt. You're out there setting decoys for 2 hours in the dark and cold. And, you get early the next morning, you're up, get the dogs fed, and get everything loaded up. Then you got to get out to the field and set out e-collars and flyers and all that stuff. Usually, even if you have the blinds brushed, the spread set, you've still got an hour of work every morning when you get to the spread. And when it all comes together and you crawl in the blind for the first time, have a cup of coffee, and you hear the first bunch coming, it's just like a sigh of relief. And then you just watch them come tornadoing down on top of you. It's very, very, very cool. One of the neatest sights in the waterfowl world.
I'm sitting here listening to you talk, and I've read some of the stuff that you've done in the past, talking about the time that you put into it and all this kind of stuff. So I'm going to ask you for a tip that you might be, hopefully you can share with me and the rest of our listeners here. So, you've got family at home, you've got other obligations other than just hunting waterfowl. How do you get the boss at home to allow so much time? And can you offer us a tip? Even though we're not doing it as a living, any tips you can offer that I might be able to throw by the boss to get me an extra Saturday in the blind or something like that?
Man, that's a tough call. I'm very fortunate that it is my livelihood, so I get a little bit more leeway than I probably should. But that being said, it's all great, and you get to be out there every day, and you're setting decoys at night, and you're scouting, and man, this is wonderful. But it's hard to be away from home. I know you guys are parents as well, and my wife and I have an 8-month-old daughter now, and it's not as easy to get away as it used to be. Not necessarily because I don't have the time, but it's hard to leave the little one.
Well, I can tell you when my son was born, and Dan's got 2 girls, so he had it even harder. But, my first 8 months, right where you're talking about, I went to work every single day, and no kidding, every day somebody told me, man, you look tired. I'm like, it's because I am tired, man. I'm not sleeping at night. So I can't imagine having a baby and then getting up and chasing snows like you do. So, my hat's off to you there for sure. Another thing that I think you probably get I would imagine through social media, you probably get some anti-people throwing your way, and I've seen you address it a little bit in the past. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about it here on our show. When when you're making all these, piles of geese and you're killing all these snows and massive numbers and laying them out and taking pictures and that kind of stuff, talk a little bit about what you guys do with all the meat that comes from all of those birds.
Well, the snow geese, I mean, the reason we can hunt them in the spring is because they're overpopulated and they're destroying the breeding habitat on the tundra. The tundra cannot heal itself as fast as snow geese are destroying it. So eventually, something's going to happen. Snow geese are going to die off, or get diseased, something. So that's the reason we have an opportunity to even hunt them in the spring. And there's no limits. You plug out your shotgun, use electronic calls. So your goal is to make a pile. I mean, you're trying to kill as many as you possibly can, and actually doing it in the name of conservation. What we do, though, is that we have a local processor that we take all of our birds to, and they process them. And some guys like to take them home and eat them, make snack sticks. We've got some guys that make Italian sausages with them, which are fantastic. But then a lot of them are donated. They go to the needy, and it's just a good use. The birds are wasted.
Yeah, I think that's a something that I'd read in the past, and a lot of organizations are quick to talk about Hunters for the Hungry and the Hush program and stuff like that in Iowa, and these are another resource that comes out of this conservation season. So it's I think there's a misconception out there that people want to say, well, what do you do with all these birds? Like, there's a lot of needy people out there that are willing to take these types of birds, churches and various food banks and things like that. So if you're listening out here and you have an area where you can get into a lot of snow geese like that, definitely consider that if you're not using all of the meat. So, like we said, we know you get asked the same type of questions about snow goose hunting all the time, snow geese hunting all the time. So we wanted to do something a little bit different with you here, with your time on our show. And what we'd like to do with you here is we're going to do a little bit of a rapid fire session here. So Dan and I are just going to kind of pepper you with some questions. You can give us just your short, no explanations, responses, and we'll just kind of run down through here and knock out some of this stuff. Some of it's waterfowl hunting, some of it's not so much, but we'll kind of bounce around. Does that sound good?
You bet. That sounds great.
All right, man. First question. Right now, what calls are hanging on your lanyard?
Ooh, I believe they are. I've got RNTs on there.
Can you tell us which ones? Because I'm kind of in the market for a duck call.
Yeah, I gotta say the Mondo's probably my favorite.
Mondo. That was more explanation than I told you were gonna have to do. My fault.
Yeah, geez, you just totally ruined the segment. All right, Tony, I see you all pumped up in these snow goose videos. So when you're getting ready to call the shot, what is your go-to command?
Ooh, man, it kind of changes every day. Wipe them out, make a pile, kill them, cut them. Like I said, you said, I get pretty excited, so I'm usually not thinking about what exactly I'm going to say. I'm just hoping to get something out.
I think some of those were straight yells in the video, but we'll leave that alone.
So, how about your go-to gun? You got a shotgun that means something special to you, or what's your go-to firearm?
Oh man, I shoot a Benelli Black Eagle 1 for snows and a 20 gauge for ducks. But the Black Eagle 1, I mean, it's when the first year they came over into the United States, whatever that was, in the mid-90s, I got one, and it's still running. So
nice. Don't change if it ain't broke. All right, here we go. Number 4. We just spoke about it. You get super pumped when you drop a ton of snows. Are you a high five kind of guy, or a fist bump kind of guy, or are you straight karate chopping out there? What are you doing?
Man, I've got to say it's both. It's just a big rush of adrenaline. It's whatever I can get up first. If it's a high five, if it's a fist bump, it's whatever. I mean, you hear people say, I'll act like you've been there before or whatever. Oh, it's not that big a deal. I love it. I'm excited. That's what we're out there for. So.
Hey, high five, fist bump, man hug. It's all good out there in the blind, man.
Absolutely.
All right. How about chokes? You a modified guy? What kind of choke are you shooting in your guns?
I shoot a Rob Roberts T3, which is the tightest one he makes, and I shoot it for doves, teal, snow geese, everything. I just prefer a really, really tight choke.
I'm a sniper here. All right, you have one of your last hunts you could ever go on. Are you shooting greenheads or snows?
Man. Last one. Man, oh man. Greenheads.
Oh.
Yeah. The only reason, my dog doesn't get wet in a snow goose field.
There
I
you
have
go.
to say, sitting in timber somewhere in sunshine with a 15-mile-an-hour wind, watching greenheads and watching my dog bring them back out of the water.
I hear that. All right. If you're going to share a blind on that last hunt with the greenheads with one person that can be in there with you, who's it going to be?
One person. Ooh-wee. Probably my wife.
Another shocker right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably my wife. It'd be nice if I could spend another day with my grandfather, but he's passed on. And if it was my dad, then my uncle would be mad.
The wife, that's a safe call at, anytime.
Now we get to see why he gets to spend so much time in the field. He's smooth, man. He knows what to say.
I picked up on that.
You worked it well. All right, you take awesome pictures, awesome videos. Would you rather be holding a gun or a camera?
Man, I like shooting, but I love shoot photos. I know there's a lot of times when I'm holding a gun that I was wishing I was holding a camera. And vice versa.
That's a tough one.
We'll say that's firmly on the fence, but with a slight camera lean.
Yep.
All right.
I'd rather holding a gun with a GoPro or something.
There you go. Best of both worlds. Tony, I get poked fun at a lot because I like to take snacks to the blind with me, and I don't mess around when it comes to doing it right with the food in the blind. So, do you take snacks to the blind with you, and what's your go-to favorite?
Man, I don't. Most of the time, I gotta have coffee. That's my snack. I bring a thermos every day.
There you go. Well, Josh has a mega thermos as well, but yeah, he's always snacking. All right, you have out of all the huge volleys of snows that you get on, what is the highest number of kills you've had in one shoot?
In one volley?
Yeah, one volley.
Man, I don't know for sure. I would say it's over 40. There's some that we've picked up, 32, 34, 35, but there's had to be a few over 40 by the time you get all the sailors picked up.
Mm. That's easily more than any I've ever shot in a full day of hunting, let alone one volley.
Yeah.
Well, you get on a good feed, and half of them come back in the dark right away, and they usually get in there pretty good. Usually, you're killing more than one with each shot. Not on purpose, but just by nature for snow goose. There's so many up in the air, you're bound to hit something.
It's in the name of conservation, so it's all good. So we talked about, camera or gun in the blind. Obviously you enjoy taking pictures. We've talked about photography on this show a bunch, and Dan and I both enjoy taking cameras in the field. What's your favorite go-to lens and camera combo?
I've got a Canon 40D and a 5D Mark II, and I would say lens-wise, probably the 70-200 2.8 when I'm scouting. But in the blinds is actually a 24 to 105. A little bit more versatile.
Yeah, keep it a little more wide there when you got 5,000 snow geese about to fall on your head. So I can see why you need the range. But Tony, we hope you had a little fun with us here today. We wanted to talk a little bit more than just kind of the standard snow goose hunting and that kind of stuff. But obviously you're a name that's just incredibly well respected in the industry, and we're really appreciative of you giving us some time here this evening. Tell everybody listening where they can go to find you on social media and stuff for Habitat Flats.
On social media, we have a Habitat Flats Facebook page, and then my page as well, Tony Vandemore. Habitat Flats website is www.habitatflats.com. And my email is usually a pretty easy way. If anybody has any questions, it's Tony@habitatflats.com.
Perfect. And we will have links to all your stuff on the show notes for this episode on our website at hpoutdoors.com. Tony, thanks again. We really appreciate your time, and best of luck on the rest of the conservation season. And we look forward to seeing some more videos coming up from you online.
Well, guys, I appreciate you having me. I enjoyed it.
Dan, you got anything else?
Hey, I'm just excited to keep following you. And I actually had one more question for you.
Yeah.
How long is it going to take before you get your daughter in a blind with you?
Oh, man, I wish she could go tomorrow.
Oh, I hear you. Well, that's awesome.
She's already got her gun. She's already got her gun. I had that before she was born. So.
Well, congrats again to you and your wife on a very, very cute addition to your family there.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, guys, check out Habitat Flats and Tony online. Tony, thanks again. Best of luck to you. Take care.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right, we would like to thank Tony for joining us on the show, and be sure to check Tony Vandemore and Habitat Flats out on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, the respective websites. All of that information will be linked into the show notes at hpoutdoors.com. So if you'd like to find that stuff, definitely check it out. Dan, what are your takeaways from our interview with Tony?
He's a very smart man, and as much as he hunts, and his family and everything, sucking up to the wife. I mean, he's a very, very smart man, and no wonder why he has the time to go out and do everything. I think she gets treated right. So no, but in all seriousness, a great episode. The guy has a vision that I wish I had. Some of the stuff that he puts together, and the videos and photography, and I encourage people to go to his website and read his blog. He's a very accomplished writer, and the whole God Made a Hunter video. I mean, it's really, really good stuff that he puts out.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway is just it's one of those stories with him where if you have a vision and you have a dream and you have something that you're passionate about, the sky's the limit on what you can do with it. And Habitat Flats has become just a world-class run outfit. And it all started out of just, love of hunting and conservation. So, I think it's just fantastic. And, you can hear, and I said it, but, I read on his website or somewhere I read, a quote that he had that, said, for some, waterfowl season is defined by the dates on a calendar. And, for some others, waterfowl season is not defined by the dates of the calendar. It's defined by, the life that you live, and the, what drives you, and what you're passionate about, and things like that. And, that stuff's obviously very, very clear and evident, with Tony and the things that he does. But another thing that I took away that I thought was interesting to hear, and that I was happy to hear, is that, like us, he also shoots as tight as a choke as he can get his hands on. And, we've certainly taken a shot here or there from guys listening to the show that disagree with us on that fact. So it felt pretty good. I'm not going to lie, to hear him say that he also shoots a full choke.
Yeah, I mean, if the best guys out there do it, and I don't know, I mean, you can't argue with it. And we see it when we go on guided hunts, and the guides are doing it, and they hunt more than anyone out there, and they use it, and they're confident, and it works. So, I think there are different situations where I would second guess a full choke, but it would be really, really, really tight quarters on a small hole. But that's about it. I mean, I'm sure he could talk about it all day, and why he chooses the Rob Roberts chokes, but maybe that's another conversation we can have with him.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway here is there is no right or wrong. It's all about your comfort level and your hunting situation, and what you need to be successful. So I don't know where people get the impression that, one choke is more limiting to the other, or one choke is more effective than the other. It's impossible to know for your situation what choke gives you limitations and what chokes don't. For me, in my situation, with where I hunt, how I hunt, my shooting abilities, a full choke works for me, and it works really well. And I don't pull it out of my gun all year long, and I probably never will. That doesn't mean that it's the same for everybody, but I think that, most guys, read or, hear that they're supposed to use a modified choke or an improved cylinder choke when hunting waterfowl. And you may be successful using that, but you may be more successful if you think outside of that box of what you've always been told you're supposed to do and try it for yourself. Maybe shooting twos isn't what you should do. Maybe for you, it's fours. Maybe it's modified choke. Maybe it's full choke. You just don't know unless you try it. And then once you do, then you have the facts to say, this is what works best for me. And, I think a lot of guys should be a little more open-minded to some of that stuff before they make definitive decisions on what you can and can't do when it comes to the gear, you choose when you hunt waterfowl. But just my opinion. But like I said, I was glad to hear him say that. It's kind of felt like a little moral victory for me. I don't know.
I hear you.
Well said, Dan. Well said.
Yeah.
All right.
No, it's tough to you can't follow that up. He had a great explanation.
All right. So again, we encourage you guys, if you haven't seen any of Tony's videos, I don't know what you're doing. You're clearly just out of touch. Get on his Facebook page, check out some of the stuff he does. Really, really fantastic footage that he puts out and just entertaining. You can see him. He gets very fired up in the field and fiery guy, which is cool. So, definitely check him out and, let us know what you guys have thought of the interview. All right, Dan, now's that time of the show where we get some sort of random fact, or I'm not even sure. So what do we got this week? What do you got to shed light on this week?
Well, it was funny because you said how he gets pumped up, and I forget who asked him, but is he a high five guy or a fist pump guy? And some of the times, I'll just throw this out to our listeners. Josh and I played Legion baseball together, so it's summer baseball in high school. And the one tournament that we went to, we had 3 guys in a room, so we had two beds pushed together, and I had to sleep on the crack. So Josh sometimes sleepwalks, and I actually woke up to him on top of me, beating me in the face with his forearms. And and after I screamed multiple times, he finally woke up and proclaimed that he thought I was someone else. But anyways, getting back to the point, sometimes Tony resembles what you looked like that night. He gets so fired up with arms just flying all over the place. It's funny to watch and kind of scary to bring up past memories.
I mean, I wasn't aware that we were going to go there on the show. Daniel.
Well, it happened.
I mean, okay, dude, if the gloves are coming off, like, I got plenty of stories too, for sure. Lots of material coming your guys' way about that. But yes, that story did in fact happen. I have no idea what that has any kind of relevance to do with the show, but hence the random nature of Dan's storytelling. But yeah, he's a fiery guy, and I like seeing guys having fun. If you're not out there having fun, you shouldn't be doing it. So definitely don't sleepwalk, and that has
and never wake up a sleepwalker.
Yeah, if you've ever seen Step Brothers, don't wake up a sleepwalker, for sure. But yeah, haven't sleepwalked in a while that I'm aware of. But hard to say. Haven't beat anybody up in my sleep or anything like that. So, yeah, I think that's about all we got this week. Anything else you want to cover before we wrap it up?
Nah, I think I'm good for today.
I think you're good too. Before we go, we'd like to thank the partners of this show: Sitka Gear, Sport Ear, Higdon Outdoors, Big Al Silhouette Decoys, Bison Coolers, where you can use the HP Outdoors discount code to receive $15 off any hardside coolers, and Backwoods Decoy Systems. If you're in the market for any outdoor products, please consider these companies when you make your purchases. They help support the show in some form or fashion. So other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the show with Tony. We're going to go ahead and get to wrapping it up with this week's parting shot. This week's parting shot has to do with something I touched on back in September with, the teal season opportunities around the country and whether they're being allowed or not based on people's ability or inability to correctly identify ducks and birds in flight. Dan and I were talking earlier. A great way to test your skills and kind of prove to yourself that you're improving on your duck identification is if you're a DU member, you get the catalog quarterly or however often it comes out, and every episode has a photo in there where there's various birds in the picture, and it's your opportunity to identify birds and see how they match up with the answers provided. So I've gotten the habit of doing that, and I can honestly tell you since I've started doing it, I've gotten better and better, and it's just a really cool, fun tool to help you progress in your ability to identify ducks, because as we've mentioned before, it's everybody's responsibility out there to know what bird you've got your sight on before you pull the trigger, not only for species, but if you choose to only shoot drakes and hens and that kind of stuff. So keep working at that. Something to take into the off season is Duck ID. All right, that does it for episode 29 of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast. We hope you guys enjoyed our interview with Tony Vandemore of Habitat Flats and our Harlequin duck profile. You can check out all of our episodes on hpoutdoors.com and also iTunes. If you have yet to have the opportunity to fill out a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, we would certainly appreciate it. It would help us immensely and give us better opportunities to bring more people just like you this show. So thank you so much for your support. Until next time, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.